It was a day like any other, or so I thought. I came home earlier than usual, having left work a couple of hours ahead of schedule. There was an uneasy feeling in my gut, the kind that gnaws at you without any clear reason. As I pulled into the driveway of our suburban house, everything seemed normal. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue over the manicured lawn, and the familiar scent of freshly cut grass filled the air. But something was off. I pushed open the front door and was greeted by silence, the kind that felt unnatural. Usually I'd hear the faint hum of the TV or the sound of Laura cooking in the kitchen, but this time there was nothing. My footsteps echoed as I walked down the hallway toward the kitchen, where a faint noise caught my attention. It was muffled, but unmistakable. A voice, a man's voice, followed by a soft laugh. My heart began to pound as I reached the doorway. What I saw next froze me in place. Laura, my wife of 10 years, was standing in the middle of the kitchen, locked in a passionate embrace with a man I recognized all too well, Brian, a so-called friend. His hands were tangled in her hair, and she was leaning into him as if the world outside didn't exist. The blood drained from my face, and my vision narrowed, focusing solely on the scene before me. Anger, betrayal, and a crushing sense of disbelief surged through me all at once. How could she do this? How long had this been going on? My fists clenched, but I forced myself to stay silent, to stay hidden. I couldn't let them know I was there, not yet. I backed away slowly, leaving the house as quietly as I had entered. My mind raced as I got into my car and drove off. The image of them together was burned into my mind, and with it, the realization that everything I had built with Laura, everything I believed in, was a lie. She had destroyed our family for her own selfish desires, and the worst part was, this was only the beginning. As I drove aimlessly through the streets, a single thought crystallized in my mind. She would pay for this. They both would. The days that followed were a blur of confusion and anger. I replayed that scene in the kitchen over and over in my mind, each time hoping it was some sick nightmare I'd soon wake up from. But reality had a way of sinking in, slow and painful. As the shock wore off, I found myself sifting through the past, looking for clues I had missed, trying to understand how things had gone so wrong. It started with the little things. Laura had always been attentive, almost too much so, always texting, checking in, asking how my day was going. But a few months ago, that had changed. Her messages had become less frequent, shorter, sometimes nothing more than a quick, busy today, or we'll talk later. I'd dismissed it at the time, thinking she was just caught up with work or her friends. But now every one of those texts felt like a red flag I had stupidly ignored. There were the phone calls too, calls that she took in the other room, her voice dropping to a whisper. When I asked who it was, she'd smile and say it was just a friend, nothing for me to worry about. And I didn't worry, not then. We had always trusted each other, and I never thought to question her. But now I saw those moments for what they were, lies, carefully constructed to keep me in the dark. Her absences had become more frequent as well. Laura had always been social, but recently, her nights out had multiplied. She'd claim it was just a girls' night, or that she needed some time to herself. But each time she left, that uneasy feeling in my gut grew stronger. I remembered one night in particular. She had come home late, much later than she said she would, and when I asked her about it, she brushed me off with a kiss and a laugh. Just lost track of time, she'd said, but I noticed the way she avoided my eyes. As I pieced together these moments, a picture began to form, one that made me sick to my stomach. Laura had been cheating on me for months, if not longer, and I had been too blind to see it. The love of my life, the woman I had vowed to spend forever with, had been lying to my face, betraying me in the worst way possible. I began to wonder just how deep her deceit went. Was it just Brian, or were there others? The more I thought about it, the more convinced I became that Brian was only the tip of the iceberg. There was a coldness in her recently, a distance that hadn't always been there. She had been pulling away from me, slowly and deliberately, and I had let her. The trust that had been the foundation of our marriage was gone, replaced by suspicion and doubt. And with that suspicion came a dark, consuming rage. I couldn't stand the thought of her getting away with this, of living her life without any consequences for what she had done. Something inside me snapped, and I knew then that I wouldn't rest until I uncovered the full extent of her betrayal. But first, I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof of what she had been doing behind my back. And once I had that, there would be no more secrets. Laura had played me for a fool, but I would have the last word. She had destroyed our family for her own amusement, and I would make sure she paid for it. With my suspicions now fully realized, I knew I couldn't confront Laura without concrete evidence. I needed proof that would shatter any lies she might try to spin, something undeniable. And so I began to plan my next move carefully, calculating every step with the precision of someone who has nothing left to lose. The first thing I did was order a set of small, discreet cameras. They were the kind you could hide in plain sight, blended seamlessly into the corners of rooms, disguised as innocuous objects like smoke detectors or picture frames. As soon as the package arrived, I wasted no time installing them around the house. The living room, the kitchen, our bedroom, everywhere she might think she was safe. Laura was clever, but I was betting that her confidence would be her downfall. I made sure to place one in the kitchen, right where I had caught her with Brian. Every time I thought about that moment, it fueled my determination. These cameras would capture everything, and there would be no way for her to deny it. I also set up software on my laptop to monitor the feeds remotely, allowing me to check in whenever I needed. Next, I began tracking her phone. It wasn't difficult. Laura had always been careless with her passwords, and I knew more about her digital life than she probably realized. I installed a tracking app that allowed me to see her texts, call logs, and even her location in real time. At first it felt invasive, but then I reminded myself that she had forfeited her right to privacy the moment she decided to betray me. I started going through her messages, searching for anything that might hint at her affairs. It wasn't long before I struck gold. The texts between her and Brian were sickeningly flirtatious, filled with inside jokes and suggestive comments. But it didn't stop there. There were messages from other men, some I didn't even recognize, making plans to meet up or reminiscing about nights they'd already shared. It was worse than I had imagined. Laura wasn't just having an affair, she was living a double life. I spent hours going through her phone, gathering evidence, taking screenshots of every incriminating message, every damning detail. I discovered that she had multiple dating apps installed, each one with a different persona. She had been using fake names, creating elaborate stories to draw these men in, all while pretending to be the devoted wife at home. The more I uncovered, the deeper my rage grew. It wasn't just that she had been unfaithful, it was the extent of her deceit, the way she had meticulously crafted her lies. She had made a mockery of our marriage, of the life we had built together. And as I continued my investigation, I realized just how little I had truly known the woman I had married. But now, the tables had turned. I had the upper hand, and I was determined to use it. I compiled all the evidence I had gathered, organizing it into a neat, damning package. I even created backups, storing the files in multiple places, just in case. There would be no way for Laura to escape this, no way for her to talk her way out of what she had done. As the days passed, I kept up the charade, pretending everything was normal while I monitored her every move. Laura had no idea that her every step was being watched, her every word recorded. I continued to gather more evidence, determined to leave no stone unturned. I was no longer the naive husband she had taken advantage of. I was someone else now, someone colder, more calculating. The thought of revenge consumed me, but I knew I had to be patient. The time to confront her would come, but it wasn't yet. First, I needed to be sure that when I made my move, it would be devastating. Laura had ruined our marriage for her own pleasure, and I would make sure she felt the full weight of her betrayal. The more I dug into Laura's secret life, the more grotesque it became. Each day, I unearthed something new, each discovery more sickening than the last. The cameras I had installed around the house were working perfectly, capturing every moment she thought she had to herself. But it was the footage from our bedroom that finally broke whatever remnants of affection I still harbored for her. One night, I watched in real time as Laura invited another man into our home, someone I had never seen before. He was younger, confident, the kind of guy who didn't think twice about entering another man's domain. They didn't waste time with small talk. It was clear they had done this before. They moved through our house like it was their own, laughing, touching, and making their way to our bedroom. The sight of them together in the very bed we had shared for years, the bed where we had once whispered our dreams for the future, was the final blow. I sat there watching the screen with a mix of horror and detachment, as if I were observing someone else's life unravel. But it wasn't someone else. This was my life, my wife, my home, and she had turned it into a playground for her affairs. I felt sick to my stomach, my hands shaking with a rage so profound it nearly consumed me. The footage was damning, but I couldn't look away. I needed to know just how far this had gone. I replayed the video, forcing myself to endure every second of their betrayal, etching it into my mind as if I could sear away any lingering doubts about what I needed to do next. But it wasn't just the physical betrayal that cut deep. It was the way she spoke to them, intimate, playful, as if these men meant something to her. She was a different person with them, someone I didn't recognize. Gone was the Laura I thought I knew, the woman who had once told me I was her everything. In her place was a stranger, a cold, calculating stranger, who had no qualms about using our life together as a cover for her infidelities. The texts and calls continued to pile up as well, each one a new piece in the puzzle of her deception. I discovered that she had been seeing multiple men, not just Brian and the newcomer. There was Todd, a married man from her gym, and Mark, a coworker she'd introduced to me at a company picnic a year ago. There were even some whose names I couldn't confirm, only vague mentions of rendezvous in her calendar, marked with innocent-sounding reminders like lunch with a friend or meeting at 3 p.m. It was staggering to realize how much time she had invested in these affairs, how carefully she had balanced it all, making sure I never suspected a thing. It wasn't just casual cheating. It was a double life, one where I was merely a background character in her twisted play. As I pieced together the timeline, I saw that her betrayals stretched back nearly 2 years. 2 years of lies, deceit, and manipulation. It was almost too much to bear. How could someone I loved and trusted so deeply be capable of such cruelty? The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by this creature who cared nothing for the vows we had made. But amidst the anger and pain, something else began to take root. A dark, determined resolve. She had done all this behind my back, never once considering the consequences, never once imagining that I would find out. But now I knew, and the power was in my hands. I had everything I needed to destroy her, to make her feel the same sense of betrayal and loss that she had inflicted on me. I spent hours compiling the evidence, organizing it into a comprehensive record of her infidelities. Every video, every text, every damning piece of proof was saved, ready to be unleashed when the time was right. I wasn't just going to confront her, I was going to expose her for the liar and cheat she was. And when I did, there would be no escape for her, no way to twist the truth or play the victim. Laura had shattered our family, our life, for her own selfish pleasures. She had made a mockery of our marriage, and now it was my turn to make sure she faced the consequences of her actions. She had no idea what was coming, but soon enough, she would. And when that day arrived, I would be ready. With all the evidence in hand, I knew it was time to confront Laura. There was no turning back now. I had seen enough to understand the depth of her betrayal, and the anger that had been simmering within me was ready to boil over. But I had to be smart about it. This wasn't just about venting my rage. It was about making sure she faced the full consequences of what she had done. I waited for the right moment, letting the tension build inside me like a storm gathering strength. It was a Saturday evening, and Laura had just returned home after yet another one of her so-called girls' nights out. She was glowing, as if she had just had the time of her life, oblivious to the storm about to break. I could see the faint traces of her latest fling, a slight smudge of lipstick that wasn't quite hers, a scent of cologne that didn't belong to me. As she walked into the living room, smiling at me like nothing was wrong, I felt a surge of disgust. How many times had she done this? Come home from one of her affairs, smiled at me like everything was normal, and gone to bed as if she hadn't just been with another man. The thought of it made my skin crawl. I didn't waste time with pleasantries. I turned off the TV and looked at her, my expression cold and unyielding. "We need to talk," I said, my voice firm, leaving no room for argument. Laura looked surprised, maybe even a little worried, but she quickly composed herself. "Sure, what's up?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but I could see the flicker of anxiety in her eyes. She knew something was wrong. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I reached for the remote and without a word, pressed play. The TV screen flickered to life, and there, in vivid color, was the footage from our bedroom. Laura's face went pale as she watched herself with the other man, her eyes widening in horror as she realized what she was seeing. She turned to me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. "It's not what it looks like," she finally stammered, her voice trembling. "I can explain." I let out a bitter laugh, one that held no humor. "Explain? Really, Laura? What is there to explain? I've seen everything. I know everything." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt nothing but cold detachment. I had loved this woman once, but that love had been poisoned by her deceit. "Please, just let me explain," she pleaded, her voice desperate now. But I wasn't in the mood to listen. I had given her years of trust, years of love, and she had thrown it all away. "How many were there, Laura? How many men did you bring into our home? How many times did you lie to my face?" My voice grew louder with each question, the anger that I had kept in check now spilling over. She started to cry, real tears this time, as she sank to the floor, burying her face in her hands. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I never wanted to hurt you." "Then why did you do it?" I demanded. "Why did you keep doing it over and over again?" She didn't have an answer, just more tears and apologies that meant nothing to me now. I could see the regret in her eyes, but it was too late for that. The damage was done, and there was no undoing it. I stood there looking down at her, feeling a mix of satisfaction and emptiness. This was the woman who had betrayed me, who had shattered the life we had built together. And now she was broken, just like I had been when I first discovered her infidelity. But I wasn't done yet. I walked over to the coffee table, where I had placed a folder before she came home. Inside it was all the evidence I had collected: photos, screenshots, videos, everything. I threw it down in front of her, the papers spilling out across the floor. "This is what you've done," I said coldly. "This is the life you've chosen, and now you're going to pay for it." Laura looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, her hands trembling as she reached for the folder. She flipped through the pages, her expression growing more and more devastated with each piece of evidence she saw. She knew there was no escape, no way to talk her way out of this. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I continued, my voice steady and unforgiving. "This marriage is over, Laura. You're going to lose everything, the house, the money, all of it. You don't deserve any of it." She tried to protest, but I cut her off. "Don't even bother. I've made up my mind. You had your fun, and now it's time for you to face the consequences. I'm filing for divorce first thing Monday morning, and you can bet I'll be taking everything." I could see the panic in her eyes, the realization that she had lost everything she had taken for granted. But I didn't care. She had made her choices, and now she would have to live with them. I turned and walked away, leaving her there on the floor, surrounded by the wreckage of our marriage. The sound of her sobs followed me as I left the room, but I didn't look back. I had nothing left to say to her. As I stepped out into the cool night air, I felt a strange sense of calm. The confrontation was over, but the real battle was just beginning. Laura had destroyed our family for her own amusement, but I had made sure she would pay for it. And now, I was free. Free from her lies, free from the pain she had caused, and ready to rebuild my life on my own terms. The Monday after I confronted Laura was unlike any other. I arrived at my lawyer's office as soon as it opened, determined to set the wheels in motion for the divorce. I wasn't just seeking separation. I wanted to ensure that Laura would suffer the full consequences of her actions. She had taken our marriage, our life, and twisted it into something ugly. Now I was going to take it all back. My lawyer, Kevin Shaw, had been recommended to me as the best in town. He was known for being ruthless in divorce cases, especially when it came to infidelity. As I sat across from him in his sleek office, surrounded by legal books and the quiet hum of professionalism, I laid out everything I had. The folder of evidence I had shown Laura was now in Kevin's hands, and I watched as he reviewed it with the cold, calculating eye of someone who had seen it all before. "This is quite the collection," Kevin remarked, flipping through the pages, his voice devoid of emotion. "You've done your homework." "I'm not here to play games," I replied, my voice firm. "I want everything I'm entitled to, and more." He nodded, setting the papers aside. "Given the evidence, you're in a strong position. Infidelity is still a major factor in divorce proceedings, especially when it's this well documented. We'll be able to leverage this to ensure you get the house, a favorable financial settlement, and possibly even spousal support if we play our cards right. I hadn't thought about spousal support. The idea of Laura paying me alimony felt strangely satisfying, but it wasn't my main concern. I just want her to pay for what she's done. She destroyed our marriage, and she shouldn't get to walk away without consequences. Kevin leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. She won't. With this evidence, we'll make sure she's held accountable. I'll file the divorce papers today, and we'll move to freeze your joint assets immediately. That way, she won't be able to drain your accounts or hide any money. The thought of Laura trying to pull something like that hadn't crossed my mind, but I was grateful Kevin was thinking ahead. He was the professional, and I trusted him to handle this the way it needed to be handled. We discussed the next steps in detail, how he would serve her the divorce papers, how we'd file motions to protect my interests, and how we'd negotiate from a position of strength. As I left Kevin's office, I felt a grim satisfaction. The legal process was underway, and Laura was about to realize just how serious I was. She might have thought she could get away with her betrayal, but she was wrong. I wasn't going to let her walk away unscathed. That evening, when I returned home, Laura was sitting at the kitchen table, her eyes red from crying, the folder of evidence still spread out in front of her. She didn't look up when I walked in, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered the months of lies, the nights she spent with other men, and any sympathy I might have felt evaporated. I went to see my lawyer today, I said, breaking the silence. The divorce papers will be served to you tomorrow. You should get a lawyer too. You're going to need one. Laura looked up at me, her face pale, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and regret. Please, can't we talk about this? We don't have to go through with the divorce. I'll do anything, therapy, counseling, whatever it takes to fix this. I shook my head, my expression hard. There's nothing left to fix, Laura. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it. This marriage is over. She started to cry again, but I turned away, not interested in hearing more of her apologies. I had heard enough. The time for talking was over. Now, it was time to make sure she felt the full weight of her actions. The next day, the divorce papers were served. Laura was still in the house when the process server arrived, a young woman who handed her the documents with a professional detachment. Laura looked at the papers as if they were a death sentence, and in a way they were, the death of the life she had known, the life she had taken for granted. I could see the panic setting in as she realized just how serious this was. She tried to talk to me, to reason with me, but I was done listening. The lawyer I had hired was already moving to protect my assets, and I had changed all the passwords on our accounts, locking her out of everything. She had no access to our money, no way to manipulate the situation to her advantage. Over the next few weeks, the legal battle began in earnest. Kevin was relentless, filing motions, gathering more evidence, and negotiating from a position of power. Laura's lawyer, a middle-aged man who looked more tired than competent, was clearly outmatched. Kevin made sure that every one of her infidelities was brought to light, leaving her with little room to maneuver. Laura fought back, trying to hold on to the house, the money, anything she could, but it was clear that she was losing. The courts were sympathetic to my case, especially given the overwhelming evidence of her cheating. Each hearing brought us closer to a resolution, and with each step, I could see the reality sinking in for Laura. She was losing everything. As the weeks turned into months, the divorce dragged on, but the outcome was inevitable. Laura was left with nothing but her guilt and a few personal belongings. The house, the savings, and even the car were awarded to me. She had betrayed me, and now she was paying the price. I watched as she packed her things, moving out of the home we had shared, her eyes hollow, her spirit broken. She tried to apologize one last time, standing in the doorway with tears in her eyes. But I didn't want to hear it. I had nothing left to say to her. As she walked out of the house, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, sadness, and a sense of finality. The marriage that had once meant everything to me was over, but I was still standing. Laura had destroyed our family for her own amusement, but in the end, I had come out on top. As I closed the door behind her, I knew there was still a long road ahead. I would have to rebuild, to start over. But I wasn't afraid. The worst was behind me, and now I was free to create a new life on my own terms. The legal battle had been exhausting, but it was worth it. Laura had thought she could betray me without consequences, but she was wrong. Justice had been served, and now it was time to move forward. Once the divorce was finalized, it didn't take long for Laura's life to spiral out of control. Without the security of our marriage and the financial stability I had provided, she was left floundering, struggling to regain her footing in a world that had turned cold and unforgiving. I watched it all unfold from a distance, a detached observer to the wreckage of her life, wreckage she had brought upon herself. The first sign of her downfall came just a few weeks after she moved out. She had found a small apartment across town, a far cry from the home we had shared. It was a modest place, the kind of apartment that made it clear she had fallen from the comfortable life she once enjoyed. But that was just the beginning. Her so-called friends, the ones who had encouraged her to indulge in her affairs, were nowhere to be found now that she was alone. It turns out they were more interested in the parties and the thrill of the chase than in true friendship. Without the allure of a double life, Laura became a liability, a reminder of their own indiscretions. One by one, they distanced themselves from her, leaving her isolated and friendless. Laura tried to hold on to the men she had been seeing, but they quickly lost interest as well. Without the excitement of sneaking around behind my back, the thrill was gone. They moved on to their next conquests, leaving Laura with nothing but the hollow realization that she had meant nothing to them. Just another fling, a momentary distraction. Her job became another casualty of her unraveling life. She had always been good at her work, but the stress of the divorce and the guilt she carried began to take its toll. Her performance slipped, her once sharp mind dulled by sleepless nights and the endless cycle of regret and self-loathing. It wasn't long before her boss noticed, and soon enough, Laura was let go. I heard about it through mutual acquaintances, the whispers of her downfall spreading like wildfire. The final blow came when she tried to rekindle her relationship with her family. They had never approved of her lifestyle, and when the truth of her infidelities came to light, they were horrified. Her parents, once supportive and loving, now viewed her with a mixture of disappointment and disgust. They had raised her to be better than this, and seeing her reduced to such a state was too much for them to bear. Her attempts to seek solace in their company were met with cold indifference. They didn't disown her outright, but they made it clear that she was no longer welcome in their lives as she once was. Laura was left alone, with nothing but her regrets and the realization that she had destroyed everything that mattered. I would be lying if I said I didn't take some satisfaction in seeing her suffer. After all, she had brought this on herself. But as I watched her crumble, a part of me couldn't help but feel a pang of pity. She had made terrible choices, yes, but she was still human, still the woman I had once loved. One night she called me. It was late, and I could hear the desperation in her voice, the tremble that spoke of nights spent crying and days spent in endless remorse. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I hesitated, torn between the anger that still simmered within me and the memories of the good times we had shared before everything fell apart. But I knew what she wanted: to apologize, to seek forgiveness, to find some way to ease the crushing guilt that weighed on her shoulders. And while I had no intention of letting her back into my life, I agreed to meet her. We met at a small coffee shop, far from the neighborhoods we used to frequent. She looked different, thinner, paler, her eyes dark with sleeplessness and sorrow. The confident, vibrant woman I had married was gone, replaced by someone who seemed lost, broken. "I'm sorry," she said as soon as we sat down. Her voice cracked and tears welled up in her eyes. "I know I've said it before, but I mean it. I'm so sorry for everything I did to you, to us." I looked at her, searching for the words that had eluded me for so long. "Sorry doesn't change what you did, Laura. It doesn't undo the lies, the betrayal." She nodded, wiping at her eyes. "I know. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I don't deserve it. I just needed to tell you how much I regret everything. Losing you, losing our life together. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I did it to myself." There was nothing more to say. I had heard her apology, and I knew it was genuine, but it didn't change anything. Our marriage was dead, and no amount of regret could bring it back. We sat there in silence for a while, the weight of all that had happened hanging between us. When we finally parted ways, I felt a sense of closure, a finality that had been missing until that moment. Laura would continue on her path, whatever that might be, but I was done with her. The chapter of our life together was over, and I was ready to move forward. As I walked away from the coffee shop, I realized that I no longer felt the anger that had consumed me for so long. Laura's descent had shown me that revenge wasn't the answer. It hadn't brought me the satisfaction I thought it would. In the end, it had only deepened the scars we both carried. But I was free now. Free from the past, free from the bitterness, and free to rebuild my life on my own terms. And that was enough. The months that followed were a time of quiet reflection. After everything that had happened with Laura, I found myself in a strange place, no longer consumed by anger or the desire for revenge, but still carrying the weight of what I had been through. My life was mine again, but it felt hollow, like a house that had been emptied of all its furniture. I threw myself into work at first, hoping that the busy days and long hours would fill the void. But no matter how much I achieved professionally, it didn't make up for the emptiness I felt when I came home to an empty house. The silence was deafening, a constant reminder of what I had lost. The divorce had left me with everything material I could have wanted, but the cost had been steep: my trust, my sense of stability, and my belief in love. It wasn't just the loss of Laura that weighed on me. It was the loss of the man I used to be, the man who believed in happy endings and the sanctity of marriage. That man was gone, and in his place was someone more cynical, more guarded. I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to let someone get close to me again, not after what I had been through. But life, as they say, goes on. I started to reconnect with old friends, people I had drifted away from during my marriage. They welcomed me back with open arms, understanding that I needed time to heal. We spent long evenings talking over beers, laughing about the old days, and for the first time in a long while, I began to feel like myself again. One of those friends, Mark, had been through a divorce of his own a few years back. He knew better than anyone what I was going through, and he became my closest confidant. We'd spend hours talking, sometimes about the pain and betrayal, other times about the future and what it might hold. He never pushed me to move on before I was ready, but he did remind me that there was still a lot of life left to live. "Don't let this define you," he told me one night as we sat on his porch, watching the sun set over the hills. "Laura's mistakes don't have to be your burden forever. You're a good guy, and you deserve to be happy again." I wanted to believe him, but it was hard. Every time I thought about moving on, the memories of what Laura had done came flooding back. Trusting someone new seemed impossible, but I knew Mark was right. I couldn't let my past dictate my future. Slowly, I began to let go of the anger and bitterness. I took up new hobbies, things I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. I started hiking on the weekends, finding peace in the quiet of the mountains, the rhythm of my footsteps on the trails. There was something therapeutic about being in nature, away from the noise of the world, where I could clear my mind and focus on the present. One day, while out on one of my hikes, I came across a small, secluded lake. The water was calm, reflecting the blue sky above, and I felt an overwhelming sense of peace as I stood there, taking it all in. It was a moment of clarity, a reminder that there was still beauty in the world, even after everything I had been through. I started going back to that lake regularly, making it a part of my routine. It became my sanctuary, a place where I could think, reflect, and start to heal. I realized that in order to move forward, I needed to find peace within myself, to forgive, not just Laura, but also myself for the mistakes I had made in our marriage. One day as I sat by the lake, I decided to write down everything I was feeling. It wasn't a letter to Laura or anyone else, just a way to get the thoughts out of my head and onto paper. I wrote about the pain, the anger, the sadness, but also about the hope I was starting to feel, the sense that maybe, just maybe, I could find happiness again. Writing became a regular practice for me. Every time I felt overwhelmed, I would go to the lake, sit down with my notebook, and pour my heart out. It was cathartic, a way to process everything that had happened and start to make sense of it all. And slowly, the weight began to lift. It wasn't a quick process. Healing never is. But day by day, I started to feel lighter, more at peace. The memories of Laura's betrayal still hurt, but they didn't consume me anymore. I had faced my pain head-on, and now I was ready to let it go. I knew I wasn't fully healed, but I was getting there. The lake had become more than just a place to escape. It was a symbol of my journey, of the progress I was making. And as I looked out over the water, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that despite everything, I could find joy again. Hope that I could rebuild my life, not as a continuation of what was, but as something new, something better. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, I was excited to find out. As the seasons changed, so did my outlook on life. The lake had become a sanctuary where I found solace, but it also served as a reminder that life, like nature, was ever-changing. I had spent months healing and rediscovering myself, but now it was time to embrace the next chapter of my life. My career had flourished in the wake of the divorce. I had thrown myself into work with renewed energy and focus, channeling the determination that had once been consumed by personal pain into professional success. Projects that had stalled were now progressing, and I was getting recognition for my efforts. It felt good to see the results of my hard work paying off, and it gave me a sense of accomplishment and purpose. One day, while attending a professional conference, I met someone who would become an important part of my journey forward. Her name was Jessica. She was a fellow attendee, and we struck up a conversation during a coffee break. There was something refreshing about her, an openness and warmth that drew me in. We talked about our work, our interests, and eventually our lives outside of the office. Jessica was kind and genuine, qualities that had been missing in my previous relationship. She was passionate about her career, but also had a life outside of work that she valued deeply. As we talked, I felt a connection that was both comforting and exciting. It was the first time since the divorce that I had felt this kind of spark with someone new. We exchanged contact information, and soon after, we began seeing each other. At first, it was a cautious friendship, but as time went on, our relationship deepened. Jessica was patient and understanding, never pushing me to move faster than I was ready. She knew about my past, and she never tried to compare herself to Laura or rush me into anything. Instead, she supported me, encouraging me to open up at my own pace. As our relationship developed, I found myself letting go of the fears and insecurities that had held me back. I learned to trust again, not just in Jessica, but in the possibility of a future that was different from the one I had once envisioned. Being with her was a reminder that there was more to life than the pain and betrayal of the past. The transition wasn't without its challenges. I still had moments of doubt, times when the memories of Laura's betrayal would resurface. But Jessica was there to help me work through those moments, providing a steady presence that reassured me I wasn't alone. She understood that healing was a process, and she was willing to walk that path with me. One of the most important lessons I learned was the value of communication. My previous marriage had been marred by secrecy and dishonesty, but with Jessica, I made a conscious effort to be open and honest about my feelings and fears. It was a different kind of relationship, one built on trust and mutual respect. As our relationship grew more serious, we talked about the future and what we wanted from it. We shared our dreams and goals, and it became clear that we had a lot in common. Jessica's optimism and sense of adventure were a perfect counterbalance to my cautious nature. Together, we began to envision a future that was bright and full of promise. Eventually, we decided to take a trip together, something I had always wanted to do, but never had the opportunity to while I was married. We traveled to a small coastal town, a place with stunning views and a laid-back atmosphere. It was a chance to escape the routine of everyday life and focus on each other. During that trip, as we watched the sunset from a quiet beach, I realized how far I had come. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer controlled my life. I had found a new sense of purpose and happiness, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. Jessica and I returned from the trip with a renewed sense of commitment to each other. We knew that we were building something special, something worth fighting for. Our relationship wasn't about forgetting the past, but about creating a new, positive future together. The journey had been long and difficult, but it had led me to a place of peace and fulfillment. I had learned to let go of the anger and bitterness, to embrace the present, and to look forward to the future with hope and excitement. Life had a way of surprising us, and I was grateful for the unexpected turns that had led me to this new chapter. As I looked ahead, I knew that the road wouldn't always be smooth. There would be challenges and obstacles, but I felt ready to face them. With Jessica by my side and a renewed sense of purpose, I was prepared to navigate whatever came next. The story of my past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. I was moving forward, not as a victim of betrayal, but as someone who had overcome adversity and found happiness again. The future was uncertain, but it was mine to explore, and I was eager to see where it would take me. With Jessica and I growing closer, our relationship continued to flourish. It wasn't just about the joy of new love, but also about the sense of stability and companionship we built together. We had come to understand each other deeply, and it was clear that we both wanted to make this relationship a lasting one. After nearly a year of dating, we decided to take the next step. It was a big decision, but it felt right. We began talking seriously about moving in together, a prospect that filled me with both excitement and nervous anticipation. I had spent so long rebuilding my life after the divorce that the idea of sharing it with someone new was both thrilling and a little intimidating. Jessica and I spent months looking at potential places, discussing our needs and preferences, and envisioning what our future home would look like. We wanted a space that was comfortable, a place where we could both feel at home. After searching through various neighborhoods and properties, we found a charming house on the outskirts of town. It had a cozy feel, with a small garden and plenty of natural light, exactly what we had both envisioned. As we prepared to move in together, I reflected on how far I had come. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer overshadowed my life. Instead, it served as a reminder of the resilience and growth that had come from those experiences. The lessons I had learned about trust, forgiveness, and the importance of honest communication had become the foundation of my new relationship. The day of the move was a whirlwind of activity. We packed up our belongings and loaded them into a moving truck, filled with a mix of excitement and exhaustion. As we unpacked and settled into our new home, it felt like we were starting a new chapter, one that was full of promise and possibility. Jessica and I took our time decorating and arranging the space to make it truly our own. We filled it with things we loved, artwork, furniture, and personal touches that made it feel warm and inviting. Every corner of the house held a piece of our journey together, a testament to the love and effort we had invested in creating a life together. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, I realized how much had changed in my life. The house, the move, the new beginnings, all of it was a symbol of the hope and joy that had emerged from the ashes of my past. I had found a partner who understood and supported me, someone who made me believe in the possibility of a happy future once again. Jessica turned to me with a smile, her eyes reflecting the last rays of the sun. "I'm really happy we're doing this," she said softly. "It feels like the start of something wonderful." I took her hand, feeling a deep sense of contentment. "Me too. It's been a long journey, but I wouldn't change a thing. We've built something special, and I'm excited to see where it takes us." As we embraced, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the path that had led me to this moment. The road had been difficult, marked by heartache and betrayal, but it had also been a journey of growth and healing. I had learned to let go of the past, to find peace within myself, and to embrace the possibilities of the future. The new chapter of my life was just beginning, and I was ready to face it with optimism and hope. The pain of the past was a part of me, but it no longer defined my present or my future. With Jessica by my side and a new home to call our own, I felt ready to embrace the adventures and joys that lay ahead. As we continued to build our life together, I knew that challenges would come. But with the strength and resilience I had developed over the years, and the love and support of the person who truly understood me, I was confident that we could face anything together. The future was bright, and for the first time in a long while, I felt truly hopeful about what was to come. The new life Jessica and I were building together was a testament to the resilience and hope that had emerged from our pasts. Our home, now fully settled, became a canvas for our shared dreams and aspirations. We filled it with laughter, love, and the simple joys of everyday life, creating a space that was uniquely ours. Our relationship continued to grow stronger as we navigated the challenges and joys of living together. We celebrated milestones, Our first holidays in the new house, anniversaries, and small victories like cooking our first meal together in the new kitchen. Each moment was a building block in the foundation of our future, and we cherished the opportunity to create new memories. Jessica and I also began discussing our long-term goals. We talked about travel, career aspirations, and the possibility of starting a family. Our conversations were filled with excitement and optimism, reflecting the depth of our commitment to each other and to building a life that was fulfilling and meaningful. One of the highlights of our journey was our decision to take a long-awaited trip to Europe. It had been a dream of mine for years, and Jessica was thrilled to share the adventure with me. We planned a tour of several countries, each with its own unique charm and history. The trip was more than just a vacation. It was a celebration of our new life and the exciting future we were building together. As we traveled through the picturesque streets of Paris, the historic landmarks of Rome, and the scenic landscapes of Switzerland, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the path that had brought us to this point. The trip was a reminder of how far we had come and how much we had to look forward to. Each destination was a new chapter in our shared story, and every experience deepened our bond. Back home, as we settled back into our routine, the sense of fulfillment and contentment continued to grow. We started focusing on new projects and hobbies that we could enjoy together. Jessica took up painting, a passion she had always wanted to explore, while I rediscovered my love for writing. Our shared interest provided us with new ways to connect and support each other's creative endeavors. We also became more involved in our community, finding ways to give back and make a positive impact. Volunteering together at local charities and participating in community events helped us build connections with others and gave us a sense of purpose beyond our personal lives. Our relationship wasn't without its challenges, of course. We faced obstacles and had disagreements, as any couple does. But the foundation we had built, on trust, communication, and mutual respect, helped us navigate these challenges with grace and understanding. We learned to approach conflicts with a willingness to listen and find solutions that worked for both of us. As the months turned into years, our love continued to grow deeper. We celebrated our milestones, both big and small, and faced the future with a sense of adventure and possibility. The pain of the past had become a distant memory, replaced by the joy and fulfillment of a life shared with someone who truly understood and loved me. One evening, as we sat together on the porch, watching the sunset and reflecting on our journey, I realized how much had changed. The life we had built together was a testament to our strength and resilience. We had faced adversity and emerged stronger, with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep appreciation for the happiness we had found. Looking ahead, I felt a sense of excitement and anticipation for the future. The road we had traveled together had been filled with challenges, but it had also been marked by moments of joy, growth, and discovery. With Jessica by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever came next, confident that we would continue to build a life full of love, adventure, and fulfillment. The past had shaped us, but it no longer defined us. We were moving forward, not as individuals scarred by past pain, but as a couple united by shared dreams and a deep, enduring love. The future was ours to explore, and with each passing day, we continued to write our own story, one of hope, happiness, and a life well lived. As I looked back on the journey that had brought me to this point, I couldn't help but feel a sense of reflection and resolution. The path from betrayal to rebuilding had been long and arduous, but it had ultimately led to a place of peace and fulfillment. It was a journey marked by growth, understanding, and the rediscovery of joy. In the quiet moments of reflection, I often thought about the lessons I had learned. The experience of betrayal had taught me about the fragility of trust and the importance of honesty in relationships. It had shown me that while the pain of betrayal could be devastating, it was also possible to heal and move forward. I had learned to value the strength within myself and to appreciate the support of those who had stood by me during the darkest times. Jessica and I continued to build our life together with intention and care. Our relationship was a testament to the possibility of finding love and happiness again after experiencing profound heartache. We approached each day with a sense of gratitude, cherishing the moments we shared and the future we were creating together. Our discussions about the future had evolved into concrete plans and dreams. We talked about the possibility of starting a family and the kind of life we wanted to provide for our children. We envisioned a home filled with love, laughter, and the values we had both come to cherish. The prospect of becoming parents was exciting and daunting, but we faced it with a sense of readiness and optimism. In our personal lives, we continued to pursue our individual passions while supporting each other's goals. Jessica's painting flourished, and her work was beginning to gain recognition in local art circles. I continued to write, exploring new projects, and finding joy in the creative process. Our individual successes enriched our relationship, creating a dynamic where we could both grow and thrive. Community involvement remained a significant part of our lives. We found fulfillment in giving back and making a positive impact on those around us. Whether it was volunteering, participating in local events, or simply helping out a neighbor, we embraced the opportunity to contribute to the well-being of our community. As we moved forward, we also made a conscious effort to maintain open and honest communication. We knew that the strength of our relationship relied on our ability to address issues and challenges together. We approached conflicts with a commitment to understanding each other's perspectives and finding solutions that honored our shared values. One of the most important resolutions we made was to continue nurturing our relationship and making time for each other amidst the busyness of life. We established regular date nights, weekend getaways, and moments of connection that helped us stay close and engaged. It was a reminder that, even amidst the routine of daily life, our relationship was a priority. In our reflections, we also acknowledged the importance of self-care and personal growth. We understood that to build a strong relationship, we needed to take care of ourselves both physically and emotionally. We practiced mindfulness, engaged in activities that brought us joy, and supported each other in our individual journeys of self-improvement. The experiences of the past had shaped us, but they had also equipped us with the tools to build a brighter future. We approached life with a sense of purpose, knowing that the challenges we had faced had strengthened our bond and deepened our appreciation for the good times. As we looked to the future, we remained committed to living a life that was authentic and fulfilling. We embraced the journey ahead with open hearts and a sense of adventure, confident that we could face whatever came our way together. The story of our lives was one of resilience, love, and growth. It was a testament to the power of moving forward, finding happiness, and creating a life filled with meaning. The past was a part of us, but it no longer defined us. We had forged a new path, one that was filled with hope, joy, and the promise of a bright and beautiful future. With each new day, we continued to write our own story, one that celebrated the strength of the human spirit and the enduring power of love. The journey had been transformative, and as we embraced the future, we did so with a deep sense of gratitude and a commitment to living our best lives. With each passing year, Jessica and I celebrated the milestones that marked our journey together. Our relationship had become a testament to love, resilience, and the joy of building a life with someone who truly understood and supported me. These celebrations were more than just markers of time. They were reminders of how far we had come and the life we had created. One of the most significant milestones was our first anniversary in the new house. We threw a small gathering with close friends and family, celebrating not only our relationship, but also the home we had made together. The evening was filled with laughter, good food, and heartfelt conversations. It was a reminder of the community that had supported us and the happiness we had found. As the years passed, our anniversary celebrations became cherished traditions. We would take a trip together to mark each year, exploring new destinations and creating memories that enriched our bond. Each trip was an opportunity to reflect on our journey, to celebrate our love, and to look forward to the future with excitement. Our second significant milestone was the decision to start a family. After many discussions and careful consideration, we felt ready to take this next step. The journey to parenthood was filled with anticipation and preparation. We attended parenting classes, prepared the nursery, and enjoyed the process of getting ready for our new arrival. When our first child was born, it was a moment of profound joy and transformation. Holding our baby for the first time, I felt a deep sense of love and connection that I had never experienced before. It was a reminder of the incredible journey we had been on and the new chapter we were beginning. Our lives were now filled with the wonder and challenges of parenthood, and every milestone with our child was a celebration of the life we had built together. We continued to celebrate the smaller milestones as well, promotions at work, personal achievements, and moments of growth. Each success was a testament to the strength and support we provided each other. Our celebrations were not just about the accomplishments, but about the journey we shared and the love that sustained us. As our family grew, we embraced new traditions and found joy in the everyday moments. Family holidays became occasions to create lasting memories, and we made an effort to cherish the simple pleasures of life together. Our home was filled with laughter, love, and the joy of watching our children grow. Reflecting on these milestones, I realized how much we had accomplished and how far we had come. The challenges of the past were distant memories, replaced by a future filled with hope and happiness. Our journey had not been easy, but it had led us to a life that was rich and fulfilling. Every milestone, big or small, was a reminder of the strength of our relationship and the joy of the life we had built together. Celebrating these moments was a way of honoring our journey and acknowledging the love and support that had brought us to where we were. As we continued to write our story, we remained committed to celebrating the milestones and cherishing the moments that made life special. Our relationship was a testament to the power of love and resilience, and each celebration was a reminder of the beauty of our shared journey. With every anniversary, every achievement, and every milestone, we looked back with gratitude and forward with excitement. The future was full of possibilities, and we were eager to embrace whatever came next. Our story was one of growth, love, and the joy of celebrating life together. As I continued to navigate the journey of life with Jessica and our growing family, I often found myself reflecting on the legacy I wanted to leave behind. The experiences of the past, both the pain and the triumphs, had shaped me into who I was today, and I wanted to ensure that the lessons I had learned were imparted meaningfully to those I loved. One of the core values I hoped to pass on to my children was the importance of resilience. Life was unpredictable, and challenges were inevitable, but how we faced those challenges defined us. I wanted them to understand that setbacks were a part of the journey and that it was how we responded to them that mattered most. My own journey from betrayal to rebuilding had taught me this lesson, and I hope to model resilience through my actions and decisions. Jessica and I made it a priority to create an environment where our children felt supported and encouraged. We wanted them to know that they could pursue their passions, embrace their individuality, and overcome obstacles with the belief that they were capable of achieving their goals. Our home was filled with encouragement and love, and we took an active role in their development, celebrating their achievements and providing guidance through their struggles. Another lesson that was important to me was the value of honest communication. In my previous marriage, I had learned the hard way how secrecy and dishonesty could erode trust and damage relationships. With Jessica, I had discovered the strength of open dialogue and the importance of addressing issues directly and compassionately. I hope to instill this value in our children, teaching them that clear and respectful communication was key to building strong, healthy relationships. We also made a conscious effort to teach our children about empathy and kindness. It was crucial to me that they understood the impact of their actions on others and the importance of treating people with respect and compassion. Whether it was through volunteer work, helping a friend in need, or simply being considerate of others' feelings, we aimed to lead by example and encourage these values in our daily lives. As a family, we created traditions that reinforced these lessons and allowed us to connect on a deeper level. Regular family meetings provided a space for open communication, where everyone could share their thoughts and feelings. Our involvement in community service projects helped us stay grounded and reminded us of the importance of giving back. These traditions not only strengthened our family bond, but also reinforced the values we wanted to pass on. Looking back on my journey, I recognized that the legacy I left behind would be built not just on the lessons I taught, but also on the example I set. The way I lived my life, faced challenges, and embraced opportunities would be the most significant influence on those I loved. I wanted my children to remember me as someone who faced adversity with courage, who loved deeply, and who lived with integrity and purpose. As Jessica and I continued to build our life together, we remained committed to creating a legacy of love, resilience, and kindness. We understood that our actions today would shape the future of our family and influence the next generation. By living our values and sharing the lessons we had learned, we hoped to leave behind a legacy that would inspire and guide those who followed. The journey of life was ongoing, and while the past had shaped us, it was the present that we had the power to influence. We embraced each day with the knowledge that we were building something meaningful and lasting. Our legacy was not just about the tangible achievements or material successes, but about the love and lessons we imparted along the way. As we continued to navigate life's challenges and celebrate its joys, we did so with a sense of purpose and a commitment to leaving a positive impact. The story of our lives was one of growth, love, and the enduring power of resilience, and we were dedicated to ensuring that the legacy we left behind reflected the values we held dear. As I stood at the threshold of another year, I took a moment to look back on the journey that had led me here. The road from betrayal to healing and from rebuilding to thriving had been transformative. It had shaped not only my understanding of myself, but also my appreciation for the life I had built with Jessica and our family. The past was a series of lessons learned and challenges overcome. Each experience had contributed to my growth and resilience. The pain of betrayal had given way to a newfound strength, and the journey through heartache had led to a deeper understanding of love and trust. Looking back, I could see how those trials had forged a stronger, more compassionate version of myself. The milestones we celebrated, our anniversaries, the birth of our children, and the everyday moments of joy were testaments to the life we had built together. Our relationship had been a source of strength and happiness, and the values we had embraced were reflected in the way we lived our lives. Our home was filled with love, laughter, and the warmth of a family that had come through adversity to find fulfillment. As I looked forward, I felt a sense of anticipation for the future. Life was ever-changing, and while I was proud of the journey we had undertaken, I knew there was more to come. The future held new possibilities and adventures, and I was eager to embrace them with the same courage and optimism that had guided me through the past. Jessica and I continued to dream and plan for the future. We talked about our aspirations for our family, our careers, and our personal growth. We knew that life would bring new challenges, but we faced them with a shared sense of purpose and a commitment to supporting each other. Our children were growing, and with each stage of their development came new opportunities and joys. We were excited to witness their journeys, to support their dreams, and to guide them with the values we held dear. The prospect of watching them navigate their own paths filled us with hope and pride. In our personal lives, we remained dedicated to nurturing our relationship and pursuing our passions. Jessica's art continued to evolve, and my writing flourished. We found joy in our individual successes and in the way our personal achievements enriched our life together. We embraced each day with gratitude, celebrating the small victories and cherishing the moments that made life special. As we move forward, we also remained committed to giving back to our community. Our involvement in charitable activities and local initiatives was a reflection of the values we wanted to impart to our children. We understood the importance of contributing to the well-being of others and making a positive impact on the world around us. The journey had been one of profound change, but it had also been one of renewal and growth. The lessons of the past had shaped us, but they no longer defined us. We were building a future that was bright and full of promise, and we approached it with a sense of excitement and optimism. Looking back, I saw a story of resilience and transformation. The experiences of the past had forged a path to a fulfilling present and a hopeful future. With Jessica by my side and our family growing, I felt a deep sense of contentment and gratitude. As I looked forward to the years ahead, I did so with a heart full of hope and a commitment to living each day with purpose. The journey was ongoing, and while the past had been a source of strength, it was the future that we embraced with open arms. Our story was one of love, growth, and the enduring power of moving forward, and I was ready to continue writing it with joy and anticipation.